and today is our 94th meeting. So we've been doing this a while, over 2 years. So last week I have notes, but I didn't send them yet. We talked about the bring your own data plane idea from Riff, and I don't think he's on the call today, so I don't know that we can finish this pull request off today. So this is what we covered last week, and I'll go ahead and try and get that video uploaded today. So we have that. And then was curious. Oh, I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. My dog is making noise. So didn't know if you guys wanted to start off today with pull requests or if you guys have anything urgent you wanted to cover before we talked about ACLs with Andy.
I did want to point out a new issue, number 458.
This one?
And that was posted by Jamal Salim, and it's in the course of analyzing the Dash pipeline for running it in with the P4TC backend that he's developing with Intel. And he had a question about whether we really need IPv4 option support in the IPv4 headers because it's in the parser. Are those there just for completeness, or is there any intention of using them? And maybe someone on this call would have a good response for that.
Perhaps Sushant might know. We could ask Sushant. Or Sushant, do you know someone I could go to ask if we're going to be using the IPv4 options?
Yeah, I have to look at all the specific options and see if we are using some of them for certain behavior in how we do the data path. But I cannot tell right now on top of my head what we are doing with those all those options. But it's certainly possible that we are doing something in the data path based on. I know that there are some things that we kind of not let virtual machines send the data packets out with, like some of the options, not necessarily IP, but like some packet markings. As an example, we don't let virtual machines send out data packets with those markings, so we remove those. It is possible that we are kind of looking at some of the options and not letting virtual machines send out packet with those options. But like I said, I don't know right now, so I need to take a look. Yeah.
Okay.
Or maybe a more restricted focus question might be, do you want a Dash device that receives a packet with IPv4 options to be able to look past the options at a layer 4 header like TCP or UDP, pull out the ports and use those for classifying the packet in a Dash ACL? Or is that
possibly yes, but I need to get back to you on that if we are doing that or not. Yes.
Andy, do you think you could add that question to the comment on the issue? It would really be good to capture that.
Sure.
I can post the issue right here in the chat if you want to.
It's the 468 that's being shared on the screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll add it.
Thank you. That helps.
Okay.
So much goes on in these conversations. I don't want to lose them.
Yeah. Thanks, Sushant. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And I took the liberty of assigning you Sushant just for tracking purposes, but thanks for speaking it.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. And mess around with my screen here. So any other issues? I don't see really any new ones. We're still working on this code in libsci. And then we have the PRs here. So hey, Marian, do we need to do anything with this fixed set tunnel? Just we have the reviewers RIF approved, so I believe I can just merge.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. And,
close the keyboard wire?
Uh-oh.
Could you mute?
Sorry. It's not me, but
Sorry.
sure.
It's me, sorry.
Okay, all right. And Riff, did you want to go over anything else with the Bring Your Own Data Plane app HLD, or do we want to save that for next week?
We can do that next week.
Okay, all right. Then you can.
Another issue with the wrong code generated in the lib side. One question that Camille is asking, and also I'm also wondering, like, is there any requirement? I think this question goes to Sushil. So, is there any requirement for echoes saying that we swap the echo tables in different stages? Do we have any requirement on that? Because usually when echo echo group when created, we will know exactly which stage it will go, because there are 5 stages of echoes, right? We know exactly which stage it will go. So is there any requirement for us to swap the stages? Say when echo group just gets created, is sent to stage 1, then something changed, it moves to stage 2. Will that ever happen?
I think if in the HLD there is a requirement section for the ACL that captures that group is bind to the stage. So that was, I think, from the VNet. So maybe Sushant can confirm that.
Yeah.
Because that was an explicit call out that we did.
Yeah, when it takes effect, it will be banded to a stage. But when it is created, can we say when it gets created, it's banded to a stage and it will actually never change until it dies. So if that would be the case, we actually can add a stage inside of the echo attribute to simplify the code and also simplify the real hardware implementation too, because we don't have to do the swap. So
can you scroll down? I think we have that that stage also, I believe. Can you scroll down to the echo?
Keep going. Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
Keep going, sure.
Yeah, right here, right here. See, I think the stage is part of the key when we create the. Oh, you're okay. No, the group is separate and the group is bound to the ACL table with ENI and stage.
So the group can have one or more ACLs, and at least user can definitely change individual ACLs. Is your question if we want to handle them by updating the existing one or just removing and replacing with new ones? Is that the question?
Yeah. Basically, if we say when we want to move a echo group from one stage to another, can we create a new echo and then delete the old echo group? Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to be careful, and I need to see the impact of doing that based on how the data plane is implemented. One thing is for sure that at no point in this whole workflow there should not be a time when there is nothing applied on the traffic. So as an example, like when we remove and add, will there be a finite amount of time during which the packets can just go through without any ACLs?
But
so
not
that's
add and remove, right? So if you runs 2, then you basically no, because it's the same policy. So then it would not change anything. But then when we remove it, then we remove the old one. Then it will just be okay.
But the other thing, add and remove, if that doesn't have any impact on the what I explained, like the time gap, then it might be okay. But have we had discussion on this before, or is this the first time we are discussing this?
And it comes up, then we look at the current why then weird behavior is getting created, and it turns out to be this might be the something we can optimize.
Yeah. So is this okay? So this is for NVIDIA implementation of ACLs. I
think this is the generic ACL question. It's not.
Okay. Yeah. So then let me. I don't know if Pensendo folks are on the call. Let me take a look what they are doing, because that's one of the reference implementations we already have on how they handle updates to the ACLs.
No, I
So-
think Sushant, the main question is about the ACL bind, right? Like from a requirement perspective, not the vendor implementation.
Yeah. Otherwise,
So-
it's, no matter who will actually do
Oh,
that.
you mean in the dash objects, do we let the caller replace the existing ACL, or like do they have to remove and add? Is that what?
So basically, when an ACL group is getting created, can we say this ACL group is bounded to a stage? And today, as we just saw, like the in the spec, the object model, we can see the stage there, right? But when we create the actual dash object through the SI APIs, the stage is not passed in the ACL group. So,
Okay.
So Riff, I think at least the way this one is modeled in the current HLD is you create a group, and then once the group is created, you bind it to an ENI and a stage. So the group,
Yeah.
while it is created, there is no stage specification.
It's actually a little bit more than that, right? I mean, you create the group, you add rules to it, and
Yeah.
then you can apply it. You're not
Correct.
allowed to change the group on the fly, if I recall, right?
Yeah.
And the same group can be applied to different stages. It's totally orthogonal.
That's right. Once a group is created, it can be bind to different stages because the group itself doesn't have stage attribute.
Christina, I
yeah.
noticed you typing in issue 415.
Yeah.
I think you might be one on another issue. That issue was kind of should have been closed, and I just closed it. That was just a mundane issue. I think you want 436. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just
Oh,
if we
go
get
ahead.
the comment in the wrong place, it might confuse.
Oh, okay. The multiple. Yeah. Okay.
Prince,
Thanks.
can it be bound to just a single stage or multiple stages?
So from the modeling, it can be bind to multiple stages, but from a requirement, whether it happens, that I think Sushant can clarify.
And also it doesn't make
can-
any sense to have the same policy in multiple stages. It's just like it's same policy anyway.
Can you tag me in this issue?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's my only question for this one. I think once we get it confirmed, we can probably like making sure we band it, and then will actually simplify the all the implementations because it's spec.
I mean, even if I suspect it's not functionally useful to bind the same group to the same ENI at two different stages.
Yeah, I think the
But
staging definition is
taking a single group and binding it to ENI 7 group stage 2 and ENI 28 stage 3 might be functionally useful.
Yes.
Even in another document for the ACL requirement, we have defined what are the stages for, and with that, we don't expect the same group to be applied on different stages.
On the same ENI, it doesn't help to apply
Yeah,
the same.
yeah,
ACL.
correct.
Yeah. On different ENI is also not the same. Yeah, because essentially just share the same like big like security group. Yeah.
Well, so there's one thing about it doesn't make really sense, and one thing being it's a requirement. So we got to be careful about. I mean, if it's logic, I agree, but if suddenly something changes and it's not in the requirement, and your vendor data plane, I suppose, is not handling that, having the same group at different level, you're gonna have a problem. So it's not a I don't know that I would make an assumption about this.
Yeah, I think if the community feels we can update the HLD to call that out explicitly in the ACL section, that one group will be bind only to one stage. Yeah.
Okay.
Because most of the assumptions are already in that doc about how the binding and the update of ACL works. So
Yeah, and it's already in the dash object anyway, so it's just not reflected in the side.
yeah.
Okay. So we can check back on this one maybe next week then, or make the changes.
Yeah, and do you mind to tag Sushant on that, because I cannot.
Yeah, I was trying
Yeah.
to. It wasn't coming up, so I'll do it without you guys watching me. So yeah,
Okay.
I will
Okay.
do that. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
make a note to do that. Okay. Anyone? And I was just looking in the older document, the pipeline basic elements in the ACL parts here in case we missed it. This is the. I'll put this in there too. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyone?
so here is ACL levels, right? These are the stages. So that the groups, when we associate to stage, it's actually totally different set of rules. It's above one, just the ACL levels.
Yeah. Okay, I'll pop this into the thing too. Okay. Anyone else have one they want to cover this week? Okay, maybe Andy, did you want to talk about since we're talking about ACLs?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay, so everyone knows Andy. We'll let him present.
Well, not everybody, but
Okay.
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 That's all
All
right.
right.
I'm not necessarily an influencer or anything like that.
The TV show, Everybody Loves Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the first time I've used Teams on this computer.
Okay.
Apparently have to grant access on security privacy settings to Teams to let it record. Sorry for the, that's when I hit the share button. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I should have tried this out from the beginning. Oh, here we go. All right, password. This is what happens when you switch computers.
Yep. Okay, and I did just tag Sushant in that prior one we were talking about.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Did you need a hand, Andy? We may have lost him. Okay. We'll give him a minute to come back.
Yeah, maybe Teams crashed.
Well, I'm thinking it either crashed or he made a change to his settings that caused him to restart. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. It's happened to me.
Self-denial of service attack. Just change the security settings, quit and restart.
Yes, that's what I just thought happened. Yeah.
All right, let me try to share my screen now.
Okay. Right. Yep.
Is it sharing a packet classification problem slide?
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to do the presenter view slideshow. There we go, so you can see everything. All right, still visible?
Yep.
Okay. Feel free to stop me at any time with questions. I will share these slides, I guess, on the SONiC group. It would be a good place to send them out in case people want to see them later. This is all based on public research here. There's nothing proprietary that I'm aware of here. There are, I knew there were at least a dozen papers, research papers on packet classification problems, like the one where you say you get a packet with, you know, 5 tuple of fields, and then you have rules with prefix matching on source and destination address, IP protocol, either exact match or wildcard, source port and desk port, some arbitrary range or wildcard. That problem has been solved many different ways by many different researchers, and it was at least a dozen papers before 2005 when this survey was published, and I've found at least another 20 or 30 or so since 2005 in my looking in the last couple of weeks, just reviewing what's been done for myself out of curiosity. So unless I've missed it, and if somebody knows of worst case results that are better than what I'm about to show on the next slide, I'd love to hear about them. I've missed them somehow. The reason for me making this presentation was I asked, I don't know, some time ago in this group, months ago, maybe a year ago, about whether there were any statistical information or possibility of sharing Dash ACLs that people would use in production with people developing Dash products in order to help tune their products. And Gerald DeGrasse's answer, I believe, mentioned, we'd prefer that you just go by the requirements and handle the worst case. And so the beginning of this set of slides is to show, unless I've missed something, the worst case is pretty darn bad. And there's a common theme in a lot of research papers on this topic that show that if you know something about what typical ACLs look like, you can often do better than the worst case. And therefore, how can vendors and or researchers get access to what the typical things look like without violating NDAs is a long-term problem in this area as well. There's many research papers in this area where, I've got slides on this later, but anyway, that's the background high-level motivation for these slides. So the worst case is expensive in memory or in classification time or both. I'll have a summary on the next slide. But people tend to configure rules that don't hit these worst cases in a lot of situations. People don't devise classification rules for ACLs, security ACLs, trying to hit the worst case on these things. They have their own use cases that they're trying to support and implement. So here's a summary of the worst case when you have, so N here is the number of rules in a rule set. So for example, it's the number of, one rule would be a 5-tuple, prefix for the source address, prefix for the destination address, IP protocol number exact match or complete wildcard, and source and destination port ranges would be one rule. And a rule set would be N of those. And in the Dash ACL case, it would further be, for one ENI for one stage, that would be one rule set. And each stage would be a different rule set, and each ENI, stage would be a different rule set. So this is just for the problem of one ENI, one stage. And also the results I'm proposing here do not support the idea of a tag in a group of prefixes, a set of prefixes in a single rule, or a set of prefixes for source destination address, or a set of source port ranges or des port ranges. So that's a generalized version of the problem that I'm not, there is no research published on that, studying that problem. So this is a specialized restriction on the Dash ACL algorithm, or algorithms for that problem. The number of dimensions here, D, it would be 5 for 5 fields. Sometimes people study, for more if you want to match on things like DSCP or type of service, things like that, but just 5 fields for Dash. And because IP protocol is kind of special, you can often solve the D equals 4 problem with, special, solve it twice, once for IP protocol exact match, once for wildcard. So D equals 4 is maybe good enough for this problem as well, because that's special. So here's some algorithms. I mean, the bottom one on there, linear scan through rules, is the most obvious one. And this is what everybody implements when they want to test their fancier algorithms to see if they've got it correctly, which is just a linear scan through the rules. It's very efficient in memory required. You just represent the rules in the linear space, and then you just do a linear scan through the rules from highest priority to lowest priority, stopping when you hit one that matches the packet fields. So the main downside of that is slow. The packet classification time is slow, especially if you miss all the rules or you hit one of the bottom ones, none of the earlier ones. These other algorithms here, I've got roughly sorted by the bottom ones are slowest at packet classification time, the top ones are fastest at packet classification time. But you can see there's typically a trade-off of, as you get faster worst case classification times, you get much larger worst case memory required. So, I mean, just think for the moment, that the top two there that are the fastest on classification time. N to the D memory, if you've got 1,000, rules in your set and D equals 4, that's 1,000 to the 4th power. Now there's a big O there with a constant there, but the constant factor is not going to be less than, that's going to be a pretty darn big number if you've got 1,000 to the 4th power on your memory size. So again, that's worst case, but typical case, a lot of these algorithms, you can get by with less. And then this is just replacing all the D's with 4. So you can see what it is for the particular case we're worried about. All right, so I don't know if that convinced you the worst case could be really, really bad, but that's my intent. And if anybody knows any better worst case algorithms or ones that I haven't put on here that are an interesting point in the trade-off space between packet classification and memory, I'd love to hear about it if I've missed it. So when it comes to sharing what typical problems look like, the ideal case would be, give a vendor or researcher, here's a bunch of, here's 1,000 or here's, I don't know, a dozen or a few hundred ACLs that I configure in practice. Study these, and if you can do better on 99% of these, then the worst case, please do so. Give us a cheaper product. But these rules are often used for blocking malicious traffic, and if you watch movies about the bad guys getting the Ocean's 11 team breaking into your building, the last thing you want to do is publish the blueprints for your defense plans in your building. And publishing these rules in full detail is like publishing your defense plans. So these are typically not shared, except under very, very specialized situations. So how can vendors and or researchers get access to information that can help them find an edge here? So one is, trust the researcher or the vendor. So on occasion in the past 25 years in researching this problem, you'll find a few research papers where somebody said, oh, we got access to a dozen access control lists from production use. And they describe statistical properties of them often and what properties they found that they used to try to find an edge in their particular algorithm in the paper they're describing. But nobody else can verify that or reproduce their results without getting access to that same set of access control lists. And so that doesn't scale very well to more people learning about what these properties are. Just because some vendor trusts researcher A doesn't mean that researcher B, C through Z or vendor B, C through Z can get access to that data. And they typically don't get access to it. In 2005, David Taylor and Jonathan Turner were one of the few sets of researchers gaining access to some production rule sets. They also got permission and they decided to write a filter set analyzer program that analyzed those, calculated some statistics about those rule sets, and then they got permission to publish the statistics. And in fact, you can go to the website at the bottom, the link at the bottom of this page, and download 12 statistics data files that they published based upon those 12 private. So they contain no information about IP addresses used. So there's a lot of information about those ACLs that you can't reproduce those ACLs or rederive what those ACLs were from the statistics. However, what you can do is they also published a filter set generator program that could read one of these statistics files and produce in a number, and you give them as input how many rules you want to produce. And it tries to produce a set of synthesized rules that are statistically similar to those statistics. So for example, they might have the same prefix length distribution and the same number of rules, fraction of rules that are wildcarded in the IP protocol versus exact match in the IP protocol, and a similar fraction of rules that have ranges in the source and des port versus exact match or wildcard. So many researchers after this paper, this was published, will often say, oh, they'll link to this filter set generator program and say, we downloaded these, we generated rules with 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 rules, and here's the results of our algorithm on it. And they could be assured that even though they didn't have access to the original rule set, they could generate statistically similar rules, hopefully. So that this work has helped in some ways, people who want to study this problem and analyze results on typical cases as opposed to worst cases, produce results. A downside is this filter set generator program, while it's public, and usable. The filter set analyzer was never published, and I've contacted the authors and some other people that have updated the code since then, and none of them have access to the filter set analyzer code anymore. Surprise, surprise, 18 years later, you might have lost track of some source files that you didn't publish. So I don't think it would be difficult to reproduce the filter set analyzer code from the description of it in the paper, but it's not done today. But I'd be interested in doing that if there's interest in these ideas here. But the filter set analyzer code, something similar to that, would need to be updated, for example, for Dash, for supporting tags, things like that that are not in the original kinds of configurations that were analyzed by it. But that'd be, I think, a useful and straightforward thing to generalize. So one possible future scenario is if I or some other group of people publish a filter set analyzer program, a rewritten version of it, generalize it to the group-based classification problem that Dash ACLs require. Would people who have access to production rule sets be willing to run the analyzer on them and publish the resulting statistics files? And then we could also similarly update a filter set generator program that would let somebody say, take one of those statistics files and say, give it, oh, I want a rule set that has 500 rules in it that are statistically similar to this data file, and produce those. And then people could, the testing group for Dash could use those on actual products that are being tested, and or anybody else who wanted to produce statistically similar rule sets could use them to do research potential new algorithms or develop new algorithms for proprietary ones for vendors, and basically maybe come up with better algorithms for this problem. And overall in the future for Microsoft's benefit, leading to cheaper products, Dash products that that they could buy in the future potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So here's one question that was asked when I brought this up before, was what kind of statistics would be useful to collect? And this is not necessarily a complete list, but it's, and I'm open, especially open to anybody that would be interested in seeing statistics like this. What would they like to see added to a list like this that a filter set generator or analyzer program would produce in its output to statistics file? But starting with some very basic ones, just the number of rules in a single rule set is a useful thing, because n is a significant factor in a lot of those worst case results. So just knowing that is useful. But a lot of other things would be useful. What's the distribution of the SA IP source address tag set sizes, and similarly for the other fields? Are there tags that have 1,000 prefixes in them, or 10, or 1,000,000? Or not 1,000,000 is large, but what's the distribution of sizes of those? What size are they typically when tags are used? How many different groups are used across the rules? When I say distinct here, I mean if you have a set of, let's say, 3 prefixes in one rule, you can, and it might be useful for people creating these rules, to use the same set of 3 prefixes in multiple rules. They represent a set of 3 groups of servers, let's say, and they want to say from this set of servers to these other groups of servers with different destination tags, different TCP or UDP port ranges that are allowed or disallowed. So the same source address groups or tags might appear in multiple rules, and what's the average number of rules they might appear in, and algorithms might be able to take advantage of that knowledge. The original filter set analyzer program collected statistics like looking at the source and destination ports, what fraction rules are wildcard in both, what fraction are wildcard at the source port, but one exact match destination port, what fraction are wildcard in the source port, but a range. And then all possible 9 combinations of those things on source and destination port. And publish statistics on the statistics file would contain fractions of how many rules had these different combinations. IP prefix length distribution and anonymous statistics about the shape of those prefix trees if you were to collect all the prefixes from all the rules that let you generate similar sets of prefixes in generated rules, but don't tell you what the original prefixes were. How many pairs of rules overlap? So if you look at n rules, you got 100 rules. If you just look at an arbitrary, all 100 choose 2 pairs of rules, how many of them can a single packet match both of them? You might wonder why is that important? It turns out there's a lot of algorithms that get an edge from the common case being that, even though it's possible to create large fractions of pairs of rules that can match a single packet. In practice, it's been seen a lot that a lot of rule sets, typical rule sets, a single packet might match at most 5 of them out of 100 or 1,000. And that number doesn't grow very quickly. And there's a lot of algorithms like decision trees that can take advantage of that fact to divide up the sets of rules with binary search or log n search to be able to divide up the rules very finely with a few operation memory lookups. And so I've listed a few other there. And then another possible statistics might be useful is implement a couple of algorithms from the public research and run them on the private rule set. The filter set analyzer could potentially run these algorithms to produce the data structures that these algorithms would produce and just output what was the size, the total size that data structure produced. So nothing about the particular ACLs, but just, if you use that algorithm, how much memory would it require? Might be an interesting, statistic to have as well, and shouldn't give you anything about the original ACLs other than the size of that data structure. This CADA, this seems to me less likely than the filter set generator and analyzer idea. But another thing that's been done in the past is CADA publishes a lot of data like packet traces. Like every year or two, they'll collect captured packet header sequences over like 5 to 10 minute or 1 hour traces on public internet links. And sometimes they try to do some effort to anonymize the source and destination address of the packets, and sometimes they don't. But then they make these data sets available to researchers if they sign up. The researcher has to sign up and they're promised not to give away the data. But there isn't any, I don't know how much checking there. I mean, if one of these got out, it would maybe be less damaging than a dash ACL private one getting out. So that's why I'm guessing anybody who only provides this data under NDA probably wouldn't be willing to provide it to CADA, but I wanted to mention it in case it was of interest. Mm-hmm. But my belief is that this sort of generating statistical files and generating from them might be much more anonymous and much more palatable. I mean, the filter set analyzer and generator idea I think of as somewhat similar to, a lot of times when you install some software application on your personal laptop, you'll often get questions when you first install it, like, are you willing to share, usage data with the software vendor so they can improve their software? I see, that similar kind of question for somebody, could say, yeah, please share statistical information that will help people make better products for this. That's the way I see this as. So if they're willing to hit yes on that kind of a button, and some people might, and some people might not, but I think we could give them pretty high assurance that we are collecting anonymous data that you can't reproduce the original rules from. That might help researchers do better. So I've got a few references here in the last slide, sorry, and that's it. Any questions?
I do not have any questions. Anyone on the call? Specific to ACL work?
And I will mention one possible way forward is I may have some time coming up soon, I think, to potentially, write a filter set analyzer program. It would be open source, there would be nothing private about it. So anybody that was curious what kind of statistics are being collected and how would be able to review that and, assure themselves that it's not giving away secret information.
Where would you publish that?
GitHub somewhere, probably.
Okay. All right, cool.
I mean, put it under some, I don't know, Apache or some other open source license kind of thing like that. I mean, the program itself wouldn't have any proprietary information, about any algorithms like that. Like this kind of data that's being collected, you can see is, it's not that this data could, I mean, there's nothing secret or proprietary about collecting these kind of statistics. and if all it does is publish these statistics, then, having the program in open source would be a good way to assure themselves it's not, collecting other things that you can reproduce the original data from. Mm-hmm. It helps make it trustworthy. And it's not like this is very fancy software either. It doesn't take, it's like a few weeks of development time and testing. One thing I would ask is if people are interested in this, if they could point me at example I guess JSON files are the way, JSON data files are the way that dash ACLs are configured. They could point me at a couple of examples that are public for testing purposes that use tags, so that I could, test a program that use to test this program that generates statistics from them.
Yeah. Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Yeah. So I think the talk is great. I don't really have any questions. I think the real question is that how can we how can we set up the the process, or how can we share the data, and which data we can share? I think that is something we need to go through and close offline.
Sure.
Yeah, and I feel like this will definitely help, because right now, if I remember correctly, the requirement of the echo is only captured in a like very high level, like hey, we have like 80 million something, and there is no at least in public doc, there is no like detailed requirement of how many echoes we have, what type of echoes, or how many echoes of each type, and also update frequencies. Those things get captured. So I feels like those things should be captured as a requirement to make things like clear. So so that's something like we can probably work on. I think in 2 weeks ago or something, like this like ask for data is like the also brought up like once. So yeah, that's why I feel like we probably should look into this one, and we'll get back, and we can think offline as well. So you can reach out to me, and I'll try to set things up. Is that okay?
Yeah. Can you remind me your name? I recognize your voice, but I don't have that.
Riff.
Oh yeah. Riff. Yeah, Riff. Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I'll send it to you.
I'm not expecting an answer from Microsoft or anybody that has access to the production ACLs today to say yes, we'll definitely do this. But if you could consider so I would recommend, or my belief would be, these kind of statistics files, if produced and published later, would not be dash requirements. They would be more like extra data for vendors that might help them optimize their products.
Because all of the good thing for this one is that all of the data that is generated will be anonymous. It will not tied to any real production data. Then
right.
the things is that okay, we actually say we need some data to do like testing, so
right.
performance testing, whatever. So we can actually use the tool to generate a sample data, right? So yes. Not just for Dash. I mean, like in any use cases, we can use this one to generate like close to prod, like scale data set without sharing any actual data, because that is whatever the configuration and coming from the customer, that is definitely not good to share. Yeah, so I think this will be really helpful in that case. So yeah, I do see a lot of value, and I really appreciate the talk. It's just like how can we move forward, and I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, so that's like step one would be, me coming up with an early version, a first version of such a program, a filter set analyzer program for Dash ACLs, and publishing that and letting people try it out and see what output it produces and see whether it seems trustworthy or not would be the first step. And I haven't done that yet. But my first reason was just to propose the idea and see if there was interest, and I may, develop such a program even if there isn't interest in using it, but it shouldn't be a lot of effort. And yeah, I think such a thing would be useful definitely for the people like Keysight and others doing Dash testing products. And another thing I should mention that I've done before, that when you have a set of Dash ACLs, or any ACLs for any product really, there are programs that I've seen before, and I've written one before, that can take any ACL and basically say, analyze the set of ACLs and give me one packet that matches each rule, guaranteed, and not any earlier rule, which is a useful way for testing correctness of these classification algorithms and implementations. It doesn't guarantee to find bugs, but it's a nice extra level of assurance that the vendor hasn't missed it doesn't have certain kinds of bugs in their ACL implementation.
Yeah, and also we are actually also looking to like programs or tools like P4 Disaggregated to actually generate those like test cases. So for validating like functionality stuff, the thing interesting piece for the test case generation or not verification is that Echo is very special. So first of all,
P4 test gen is not trying to test that an ACL implementation in detail is incorrectly. It's trying to test, do you have a dash ACL table at all that can handle one table entry is the kind of thing P4 test gen tests.
Yeah, it does generate some table entries. The fun thing, for testing, but the fun thing is that the dash echo is different. It has like echo tags. It cannot be described in a BMV2 because we actually have to do like the very special like match types with a list to mimic the in the API level. But in a real BMV2 program, that's where the P4 package gen comes in and generates those test cases. Yep. It cannot generate because it's not not the real.
It doesn't generate fancy dash ACLs. That's not its purpose. That's not its
exactly. Purpose. Yeah, so you see here we actually have a hole that needs to be closed. There is a gap here, and also is that for functionality verification we only need one test case, right? But then doesn't like cover the case where we need like stress test,
right?
And yeah, so there are definitely gaps here, and this one can fill in those gaps. So that's why I'm really excited. But the thing is that we probably need to work out like how to move on and really like to see how to set up everything. Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Great. Like I said, the next step for me would be to actually develop a first version of this analyzer program, just for people to review and try out and see whether they trust it. But sorry, somebody else was asking a question.
It was Mircha.
It's Mircha here. So I was saying I'm very interested to take the output of this statistical analysis and take it as input for the dash hero test config generator. Because right now I'm generating a lot of /32 kind of ACLs. Route it's a bit more, let's say, more advanced. But it will be interesting if you say, hey, I want 10% to be /24, 15%. And if you give me kind of idea of how the format of the output file will look, I can already start the work on that and make something nice. We just need to, probably initially I assume it will be something like /24, 10%, /27, 5%, /32, 9%, probably something like this, or I don't know. Yeah. And I can take that as the input.
Contact me offline and I can point you at, or that class bench has a research paper that goes with a tech report that goes with it and describes what it does. Happy to answer any questions about it that I can answer, but I'd say take a look at that.
And also, and also like IPv4, IPv6 distributions. Those things are really not covered anywhere. I feel so like in order to get just like Micha just said, that it will be useful in a lot of ways. So and we actually share. I think we share the same goal. So it definitely be helpful.
Great.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool.
So I was just doing some work in the background while I was listening. Camille, did that fix end up working for you for 415?
In what meaning?
Oh, it was the link from Mayapan. I'll grab it for you. It was the BMV2 fix that was like a one-liner fix. I'll check in with you. Grab it. Anyone else have any?
That's wrong code generated? I think I signed off one of the PR.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know it was merged. Is it working? Hopefully it is. All right. Then thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, Christina, I
oh,
have
yeah,
I have a just a really quick. So I have a
please,
few
yeah.
very small PRs, just like
Okay.
the typo changes or whatever. So if if anyone can help like review that, then I would be really appreciate it, because
Yep.
yeah, it's like it's like PRs.
I saw a couple things.
It is PRs like a wrong words or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I saw that. I think I saw them.
Spell check. It was a spell check PR.
Yeah, like add the VS Code folder, and also fix wrong words in a lot of wording lists. So very small change.
Yeah. Sounds good. No problem.
Yeah.
I can do that right now after the meeting. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Well then, anyone else? Okay. Then, oh, and Andy, there's also a slides folder in the Dash repo if you wanted to put your slides there, if you want to, or when you get further along. Yeah.
Okay,
I can shoot it to you in email.
Create a pull request and put in with adding the file to that folder.
Can, yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
And Riff, maybe we can talk about your stuff next week, your PRs maybe.
Oh yeah. That would be great. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.